I gave you this about 2 weeks in advance of how your post-test is going to be broken down so you could focus on different parts as needed. We're going to go over the review. If you have any questions during the review, please ask. It's a time to ask. But basically, all the beginning stuff that we went over, nouns, knowing if it's feminine or masculine, singular or plural, definite, indefinite articles, numbers, all your irregular verbs. The number next to it is how many questions will be for each of those sections, each of those verbs. Setting aside the difference between the two. Possession, which can be using the de, which is to undo the apostrophe s in Spanish, or your possessive adjectives, which we'll go over. Pronouns that are obviously needed for present tense, which is basically just conjugating your verbs. That's what it's called. That's what we've been doing. The whole time we've been conjugating all these verbs in the present tense. In Spanish, too, we'll switch to preterite or past tense, which is it's already happened in the past. And then present progressive, that's part of present tense. It's that in the present tense, and then the progressive part is the ing. And then correcting sentences, you kind of have to put everything together in order to make sure that you have the sentence correct, that all the parts agree. Everything in Spanish agrees in what and what? Gender and number. Okay. Yes?
What was Gustav's conjugation?
I believe it's on our chart. Let me wait till we get to that part and then we'll talk about that. Alright, so for nouns, we learned from the very beginning that in Spanish, words are either feminine or masculine, and they follow the correct ending is what lets you know if it's a feminine noun or a masculine noun. Remember that you can do it the cheating way of figuring out if a word ends in L-O-N-E-R. S if it's singular. For example, the word país that we had in our vocab, the word Mercedes is one girl. A lot of people get confused by that one. The word mes is one singular month. So if the word ends in an S and it's singular, then it's a masculine word. So loners, EMA, and AMA are kind of the process of elimination way to figure out if a word is feminine or masculine. If it's loners, AMA, EMA, then it's a masculine word, and by process of elimination, the rest would be feminine. However, always make sure that you backtrack a few letters. If it ends in just E, it's masculine. If it ends in IE, it's feminine, or UNVRE. So you can't just look at the last letter. And then CION, SION. Again, they'll just look at the N, and so forth. So just make sure that you are okay with the endings that let you know if a word is feminine or masculine.
But you are feminine?
Yes, right there.
Okay.
Alright, then rules to make things plural. If a noun ends in a consonant, then you add ES. If it ends in a vowel, you add S. If it ends in a Z, which not too many do. The word lapis is a common one, ends in a Z, change that Z to a C, and since C is a consonant, then you add yes. Everything has to agree in gender and number, and this is where you have to put all the parts together. So gender referring to feminine, masculine, number referring to singular or plural. Once we know nouns and their gender and how to make them singular or plural, we can put articles with them. What's the difference between a definite and an indefinite article?
Definite means the be. You're talking about something specific.
Correct. Perfect. So something definite, the pen that I hold in my hand, one specific pen, versus a pen that could be any pen in the room. So your meaning for all four of these words is the, and then for any of these, depending if it's singular, in English it depends if the word has a vowel or not, but A or N for singular, and then some for plural to make your words agree. So feminine, masculine, singular, plural, everything agrees. And gender and number. When we talked about pronouns, that was the other building step to make sure that we knew how to conjugate verbs. So when we talk about pronouns, you have the singular on the left, the plural on the right, and you can automatically rule out half of your choices just by deciding singular or plural. Is your subject singular, one, or plural, more than one? Remember that we do not, and we still have people being confused with this. If we have the word nuestro in front of a noun, that is not the nosotros form. What does nuestro mean?
Our.
Okay, so our something, our dog in this case. The dog belongs to us, but it's just one singular dog. We all share one dog. So that would not be the nosotros conjugation, that would be a singular conjugation that would be replaced with, I guess, he, if we were replacing your subject pronouns. So same thing with, if you see a mi casa, the house belongs to me, but it's not I. You're not saying I house, you're saying my house. So house would be the singular subject to make your verbs agree. Alright, we'll talk more about verbs in a second, but subject pronouns, you should know on the singular side and plural side. And you're only going to use this box if you see nosotros or somebody and I, and then anything plural would kind of be left over for the bottom one. We're not going to use vosotros, so we'll substitute it with the ustedes, you all. Alright, the numbers, just a few practice that I put there for you, and making sure that we are okay with. Numbers work the same exact way that we do them in English. So we would say 5,555, 5,000, 5,000, 500, 500, 55. And it works the same exact way. On the second example there, I gave you one where the tens place doesn't have anything on it, so there's nothing holding that place. So there's no and needed there. You only need the and if you're doing a number that has the two last digits on there. Okay. And then 100 by itself is 100. Anything above 100, 101 to 199 would be ciento. So you're doing the same way that we do in English. Just be careful with 500 doesn't really follow the pattern of 500. It's not 500. 500 is different. 700 just has a little bit different spelling change. Just like 900. Instead of siete and nueve, then it's just different spelling change there. Alright, then your possessive adjectives. They work the same way as articles. You put them in front of the word, and you make them agree with the word that it modifies. So the only thing where people get confused with possessive adjectives is where if something belongs to me, I'm going to look in the I box. It belongs to me. But what belongs to me? Is it one thing or more than one thing? Then you have to decide singular or plural. These all you have to worry about is singular or plural with each one. Whoever it belongs to, whatever belongs to you if it's singular or plural. The only one you have to worry about gender is the our word. You have to do nuestro, nuestra, nuestros, or nuestras, depending if something that belongs to us is feminine, masculine, and then singular, plural. Do you own one thing or more than one thing? Remember that in Spanish, the apostrophe S concept does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't say Miss Mayo's class. You have to say
Clase de mi.
perfect. So to flip it around and use the de, clase de SenoraMayo. So de can mean of or from, obviously in this case of, although that was one of the hints that when we use sed or estad, that anytime you see de, you're going to use the verb sed. So es la clase de SenoraMayo. When we're using the verb to like, which is one of your questions, careful that mi, M-I, is a possessive adjective. M-E is the pronoun that goes in front of the verb to start. So two different words there. And we have to know all of these. It's either going to be an article or possessive adjective in front of a word. Be definite or indefinite. But everything has to agree to make sentences correct because everything has to agree in gender and number. had our 4 seasons. Anytime we do dates, we always have to put SL. Then the day always comes first. Then the month. Then use the day in between. Anytime you're asking cuál es la fecha de hoy, you're asking about the date. But if you're asking about qué día es hoy, you're asking about the day of the week. And with those we used today, hoy, mañana, tomorrow. We didn't use yesterday too much. We're going to come back and use the word ayer more so in Spanish too when we start dealing with the past tense. So if you ask about day of the week, then you've got lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado. And then if you're asking about date, then your day always comes first, which would be spelled out number in Spanish. And then de, then the month, and did, and then year. Questions so far? Alright, time. Time is a tricky one because first let me remind you that time is feminine. So that's why we have la with it. Es la we only use with the hour being 1. So it should make sense to you, especially now at the end of Spanish 1, that es is singular and la is singular, so you're only going to use it with the number 1. Son is plural, las is plural. You're only going to use it with the hour being 2 or more. So those are your 2 decisions for the hour. Then when we switch over to minutes, minutes 0 all the way through 30, you're just going to use an and. You're going to say hour and minutes. The tricky part becomes when minutes go past from 31 all the way to 59, you're going to have to go up an hour and subtract the number of minutes to get to that hour. So just like we do in English, 15 minutes till the next hour, same thing, but we're going to do the hour minus till however many minutes to get to that hour. So all you do is take 60 minutes in an hour, subtract however many minutes are left to get there, or figure out how many minutes you have left to go to the next hour. So you always have to make sure you go up an hour because you're subtracting from that next hour. And then you can use media for half, middle of the hour, and then cuarto for a quarter or 15 minutes. But either one is acceptable. That's good. And then conjugations, which is what we spent majority of our time on. The main thing here is we should already know our endings of how to make things agree. Your subject and your verb always have to go together. But you have to know your meanings. So your 64 AR verbs, and then the remaining verbs to make 100. We made an even 100 AR, ER, IR verbs. So you have to know meaning of the verb, and then how to conjugate it. So just like the 2 examples here, yo to clean is limpiar. It's an AR verb for the yo form. Drop the AR at an O, limpio, I clean. You wash, careful to wash and to clean. People get confused, so that's why I put those 2 there for you. And lavar is the verb. Agree with the to form. That's the correct conjugation that agrees with the subject. So you have to know meaning and conjugation. Alright, your irregular verbs. Don't follow the nice pattern of regular verbs. So, all 64 AR verbs that we went over followed the pattern of dropping the AR, adding those endings. ER and IR verbs, the only difference is the nosotros form. The rest of the endings are exactly the same. Drop ER, IR, and add those endings. For the irregular ones, they don't follow a pattern. That's why they're called irregular. So you just have to remember what's irregular about each one. For ir, no rhyme or reason to it. You just have to remember voy, vas, va, vamos, van. And I have these in a row here instead of having them in columns for singular and plural. You should know the format. That is only irregular in the yo form. The rest of them are regular AR conjugations. Tener is a go change and an E to IE change. inside the shoe shape if we were to put it in a box this way. Querer is an I boot, so it goes all the way up to the yo form. Jugar is a U to UE boot. Saber and conocer, only irregular in the yo form. The rest are regular conjugations. This is the only accent we need to worry about with irregular verbs. Say. So far. We'll learn more irregular verbs in Spanish too. Then the rest of your go verbs also just irregular in the yo form. Conozco and introduzco, very similar, so if you want to jot down an arrow there. Venir is not just a go verb, but also an I to I change, just like tener was. So inside the shoe shape, we have an I to I change, as well as a go change. And then to like, we have to make sure that we put that pronoun that's in front of it, the me, te, le, nos, and les. That agrees with your subject. The reason why the verb itself doesn't get conjugated is because you're not making it agree with the subject. You're making it agree with whatever it is that you like. So if you like one thing, it's gusta. If you like plural things, then it would be gustan. It's the only verb that we've really discussed that does that. Then ser and estar. Also fall under our irregular verbs. Ser is soy, eres, es, somos, son. Estar, estoy, estás, está, estamos, están. Accents should be very, very clear, so technically you have to worry about these accents as well for irregular verbs. We use ser for more permanent things. We use estar for more temporary things. Does that always work? No. So we have to, we can use the shortened acronyms, but you have other ones from our notes. C for characteristic, anytime you're describing anybody, it will always be said. Origin or occupation, a job or where you come from, which would use that de, which would also show relationship. And then things being more permanent. However, time and date we know for sure aren't permanent. Those change every day, every second, every minute. So just know all your reasons for set and why we use it. And remember that when we talked about date and time, that we used es, son for time, and then for your dates you only have to use es because you're only dealing with just numbers there, not singular or plural. And then for estar, anything to do with location will always be estar. Anything to do with present progressive, which we'll talk about in a second, will always be estar because it's a temporary action. It's not always going to be ongoing, ing form, but a-n-d-o, i-e-n-d-o, always clues for that. Condition and emotion very similar, just difference between being sick is a condition that can usually change more easily, just like an emotion can. But know that, of course, certain conditions or illnesses can be lifelong. But again, don't read into the sentence, just deal with what you have. So we had a couple of practice with ser and estar. I gave you the reasons why we use each one over on the right. Hija de Maria is talking about a relationship. Any family relationships will always be ser. Our friends, here's one that a lot of people want to automatically do nosotros. These are not the same words. Our friends are in school. That's always a clue for location. Then we are from the United States, always a clue for origin, for ser. Cerca de, remember that the de here does not work as a clue. Cerca de is one of your words, just like al lado de. Those are seen as phrases that tell you location, which would be estar. And then careful again, tu padres, not the tu form, it doesn't have an accent. Tu with an accent is you. to without is your. Your father. One singular conjugation is president, which would be an occupation, which would be said. And then going along with our reasons for a stud, present progressive, you have to use a form of a stud because it's a temporary action. It's not always going to be ongoing. So the present part is the stud conjugation in the present tense. The progressive part is the ing part, which for AR verbs drop the AR, add ANDO. For ER and IR verbs drop the ER, IR, and add IENDO. This doesn't apply when we have the two verbs in a row rule. Remember, we always conjugate a verb, unless you have two in a row, nothing in between. That rule doesn't apply here because the ing form is not a conjugation. You're not making it agree with the subject. All that you're making agree with the subject is the stud. The second verb, you're just adding the ing ending to it. You're not, it doesn't change. It's I am talking, you are talking, he is talking, she is talking. Talking stays the same, no matter what the subject is. And correcting sentences just brought everything back, making everything agree. Gender and number.
So when you're switching around, is it when it's subject and verb is subject everything?
If you have a noun and an adjective right next to each other, you flip it. You still have to make them agree. So if I say pretty girl, I still have to make the word pretty feminine, but I'm going to say girl pretty. Flip the two. The only other instance where you flip things is when we are making a simple question. If we have subject and verb, your verb is going to come first instead of the subject. But you still have to make them agree. Everything always has to agree. This is an excellent document to keep for Spanish 2 because it's basically Spanish 1 in just a few pages. Condensed. 4 pages of Spanish 1. And then we always have the YouTube videos and all that. Whether you're in my class or not next semester, you can always go back and look at all the videos and different resources that I have for you on my webpage, which hopefully you'll save, but if you don't have it, just SenoraMayo.weebly.com. Any questions?